They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I never believed that until the night my son-in-law called me a simple handyman in front of 40 wedding guests, and everyone laughed like he'd just delivered the punchline of the century. Let me back up. My name is David Brennan, and for the last 23 years, I've owned Zenith Logistics, a mid-sized tech company that handles supply chain software for about 200 corporate clients across New England. We're not Amazon, we're not flashy. But we're profitable, private, and I like it that way. No shareholders breathing down my neck, no board meetings where everyone pretends to care about quarterly earnings while secretly checking their phones. Just me, my wife Laura, and a tight crew of people who actually know what they're doing. The thing about owning a private company is that you can stay invisible if you want to. No press releases, no CEO headshots on the website, just a P.O. box and a legal team that keeps your name off everything public. I learned that trick early, back when I was 30 and some competitor tried to poach half my staff by targeting me personally. Never again. These days, if you Google Zenith Logistics CEO, you get a stock photo and a generic bio written by our marketing intern. Which brings me to Blake Donnelly. Blake was going to be my son-in-law. Tall, good-looking in that corporate mannequin way, with perfect teeth and a handshake that felt like he was trying to win a contest. He worked in sales for some pharmaceutical distributor, the kind of job where you spend half your time on LinkedIn and the other half at networking events pretending craft beer tastes good. He'd been dating my daughter Emily for 2 years, and 6 months ago, he proposed. Emily said yes. Laura and I smiled and hugged them and opened champagne, even though I'd already noticed the way Blake looked at our house, like he was calculating square footage and resale value, even though I'd heard him ask Emily more than once what I really did for money. Dad fixes things, Emily always said, which wasn't technically a lie. I do fix things. I fix supply chains. I fix vendor contracts. I fix profit margins. But Emily didn't know that because I'd never told her. Here's the thing about being a father. You want your kids to love you for who you are, not what you have. So when Emily was growing up, I drove a 10-year-old truck and wore jeans with paint stains and told everyone I was a contractor. Laura went along with it. She thought it was charming, in a reverse snobbery kind of way. And honestly, it worked. Emily grew up normal, grounded. She went to state school, got a marketing degree, got a decent job at an ad agency downtown. She didn't act like a trust fund kid because she didn't know she was one. But somewhere along the line, she started being embarrassed by me. It happened gradually. First, it was little comments. Dad, you can't wear that to my work event, or maybe don't mention the truck. Then it was bigger things. She stopped inviting us to meet her friends. When Blake came into the picture, she introduced me as the handyman before I could say anything else. I laughed it off at first. Laura told me to let it go. She's young, Laura said. She'll figure it out. Except she didn't figure it out. She doubled down. The engagement party was at some trendy restaurant downtown, the kind of place where the menu doesn't have prices and every plate looks like a small art installation. Blake's parents paid for it. His dad owns a car dealership in Connecticut, and his mom does something in real estate. They're wealthy in that loud, obvious way. Designer everything, constant name-dropping, the kind of people who say summer as a verb. Laura and I showed up in our normal clothes, me in khakis and a button-down, Laura in a simple black dress. Nothing fancy, but clean and appropriate. We brought a card with a check inside. Not too much, just enough to be generous without raising questions. Blake's family was already holding court when we arrived. His dad, Richard, was talking about his new Porsche. His mom, Patricia, was showing off pictures from their vacation in Tuscany. Their friends, all corporate types in expensive suits, were laughing and drinking and making the kind of jokes that only land when everyone's pretending to be more sophisticated than they are. Emily saw us come in, and her face did this little flicker. Not quite a wince, but close. She came over and hugged us, but it was stiff, performative. "You made it," she said. "Wouldn't miss it," I said. Blake appeared beside her, all white teeth and cologne. "Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Brennan, so glad you could make it." He shook my hand with that same aggressive grip. I smiled and nodded and made small talk about the weather, because that's what you do at these things. But I could see it in his eyes, that quick assessment, the way he glanced at my shirt and shoes and mentally filed me under not important. We found seats at a table near the back. Laura squeezed my hand under the table. 2 hours, she whispered. We can do 2 hours. Dinner was fine. The food was good, if a little pretentious, seared something with microgreens and a foam that tasted like absolutely nothing. But the company was worse. Blake's father spent 20 minutes talking about interest rates. His mother kept asking invasive questions about Emily's job, then offering advice Emily clearly didn't want. The whole table had this forced, performative energy, everyone trying to prove they belonged there. I stayed quiet. Laura made polite conversation with the woman next to her, and then Blake stood up to make a toast. "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he started, raising his glass. His voice had that practiced quality, like he'd rehearsed this in the mirror. "Emily and I are so grateful for all the love and support. I know planning a wedding is crazy, but with family like this, it's going to be amazing." Everyone clapped. Blake smiled wider. "I also want to take a moment to thank my future in-laws," he continued, gesturing toward Laura and me. "Laura and David have been so welcoming, and I have so much respect for people like David. You know, people who work with their hands, who keep things simple. In this crazy world of corporate ladders and rat races, there's something really admirable about a guy who's just content with a simple life." The table went quiet for a second. Then someone laughed, one of Blake's friends, and then someone else. And then the whole table was chuckling. This polite, condescending sound that made my jaw tighten. Emily was smiling. Not laughing, but smiling. Like this was fine. Like her fiancé calling her father simple in front of 40 people was just a charming observation. Blake raised his glass higher. "To family. To simplicity. To the people who keep us grounded." "To family," everyone echoed. I didn't raise my glass. Laura noticed. Her hand found mine again under the table, tighter this time. Blake sat down, looking pleased with himself. Someone clapped him on the back. Richard said something about "good speech, son." Patricia was beaming, and I just sat there, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Funny how people assume quiet means small. After the toast, I excused myself and went outside. The restaurant had a little patio area. Empty this time of night, just some metal chairs and a view of the parking lot. I stood there in the cold, hands in my pockets, watching my breath fog in the November air. Laura found me a few minutes later. "You okay?" she asked. "Fine." She stood next to me, not touching, just present. Laura's good at that, knowing when to push and when to just exist in the same space. "He's an idiot," she said after a while. "Emily didn't defend me?" "I know." We stood there in silence. Inside, I could hear laughter, music, the sound of people having a great time celebrating a wedding that suddenly felt like a mistake. "What do you want to do?" Laura asked. I looked at her. My wife of 26 years, the smartest person I've ever met, the woman who convinced me to keep the company private, to stay out of the spotlight, to build something real instead of something flashy. She was watching me with those sharp green eyes, and I knew she already understood what I was thinking. "I want to go back inside," I said. "I want to smile and finish dessert and congratulate them again. And then?" "And then I'm going to remind them that simple doesn't mean stupid." Laura's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Good." We went back inside. I ate my dessert, some kind of chocolate thing with gold leaf on top. I shook hands with Blake's parents. I hugged Emily goodbye and told her I was proud of her. Blake walked us to the door, still riding high on his toast. "Thanks for coming, David," he said. "It really means a lot." "Wouldn't have missed it," I said. As we were leaving, I heard him talking to one of his friends by the bar. "Interview tomorrow morning," Blake was saying. "Zenith Logistics. Finally. I've been trying to get in there for months. If I nail this, I'm set. That company is like printing money," his friend laughed. "Dude, you're going to crush it." "I know," Blake said. "I've got this." I kept walking. Laura was already at the car. She got in the passenger seat and looked at me. "You heard that," she said. It wasn't a question. "I heard it." "What time is his interview?" 9 a.m. I checked the schedule this afternoon." Laura buckled her seatbelt. Then she started laughing. This low, genuine sound that made her whole body shake. "What?" I asked. "Tomorrow is going to be very interesting," she said. I started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. My phone buzzed, a text from Emily. "Thanks for coming tonight, Dad. I know it's not your usual scene." I didn't respond. Instead, I called my assistant, Julie, who picked up on the second ring despite it being almost 10 p.m. "Julie, it's David. I need you to do something for me." "Sure. What's up?" "Blake Donnelly, 9 a.m. interview tomorrow. I want to conduct it personally." There was a pause. "You never conduct first interviews." "I'm making an exception." Another pause. "Is this the guy marrying your daughter?" "That's the one." "Oh." Julie's voice changed, sharper, more interested. "Do you want me to brief you on his application?" Send it to my email. I'll read it tonight. Anything else? Yes. Don't tell anyone I'm conducting the interview. Let him think it's standard procedure. Got it. I could hear the smile in her voice. This is going to be fun. Let's hope so. I hung up. Laura was watching me with that same not-quite smile. You're really doing this, she said. I'm really doing this. He's going to die when he sees you. That's the idea. We drove home in comfortable silence. Our house is in a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from downtown. A nice place, not huge, but well-maintained. The kind of house that doesn't scream money, but doesn't apologize for having it either. 3 bedrooms, 2-car garage, a yard that Laura actually uses for gardening instead of just hiring someone to maintain it. Inside, I poured myself a whiskey and opened my laptop. Blake's application was already in my inbox. Julie was efficient like that. I read through it slowly, making notes. Blake Donnelly, age 28, bachelor's degree in business administration from a mid-tier private school. 5 years of sales experience. Currently at Patterson Pharma Supply. Applying for senior account manager position at Zenith. His resume was impressive at first glance. Lots of buzzwords, lots of metrics. Increased territory sales by 40%. Managed key accounts worth over $2 annually. Led cross-functional teams to exceed quarterly targets. But the more I read, the more I noticed the gaps. The dates didn't quite line up, the achievements were vague, and some of the references were people I'd never heard of, which was weird because I know most of the players in B2B sales around here. I opened a separate window and started digging. LinkedIn, company directories, industry databases. It took me about an hour to confirm what I suspected. Blake had lied. Not about everything, but about enough. The 40% sales increase was actually 15%, and it happened during a year when the whole industry was up. The $2 million in accounts was closer to $800K, and one of his leadership roles was actually a 3-month project where he was a junior member of a 6-person team. I leaned back in my chair and finished my whiskey. You find something? Laura asked from the doorway. He patted his resume. How bad? Bad enough that I wouldn't have given him an interview if I'd caught it earlier. Laura came over and looked at the screen. She's not in the business, but she's smart enough to spot bullshit when she sees it. So what are you going to do? I'm going to give him exactly what he wanted, I said. An interview with the CEO of Zenith Logistics. And then? And then I'm going to ask him some questions. As the story unfolds, hit the hype button, like, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive them or walk away? I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was anxious. I've conducted thousands of interviews over the years, but because I kept running through scenarios in my head, imagining the moment Blake would walk into that conference room and see me sitting there. Would he freeze? Would he try to play it cool? Would he immediately understand how badly he'd screwed up? I hoped for all 3. Laura woke up around 6 and found me already dressed in a suit. The good one, dark charcoal, the kind that costs more than Blake probably makes in a month. I only wear it for serious meetings, board presentations, legal depositions, and apparently revenge. You look scary, Laura said, kissing me on the cheek. Good. Don't break him too badly. He's still technically going to be family. I looked at her. You think Emily's going through with the wedding? Laura was quiet for a moment, pouring herself coffee. I think Emily doesn't know what she wants, but she's about to find out. I grabbed my briefcase and headed for the car. The drive to the office took 30 minutes in morning traffic. Zenith's headquarters is in a renovated textile mill on the edge of the city, one of those industrial buildings that got converted into trendy office space about 10 years ago. Exposed brick, high ceilings, big windows. We lease 3 floors and sublease 1 to a design firm that pays rent religiously and never causes problems. Julie was waiting for me when I got off the elevator. Conference room B, she said, handing me a tablet. I pulled up his application, his LinkedIn, and the notes from the phone screen. Also, I did a little extra digging. And you were right. His numbers don't add up. I called Patterson Pharma this morning. Pretended to be verifying employment for a background check. Blake's current title is account coordinator, not senior account manager like he put on his resume. His territory sales were decent, but nothing special, and he was written up twice last year for missing quota. I scrolled through the notes. Does he know any of this is coming? Not unless he's psychic. HR scheduled it as a standard interview. He thinks he's meeting with Tom Vickers. Tom Vickers is our VP of sales. Good guy. Former college football player who pivoted into B2B sales and discovered he had a talent for it. Blake would have liked Tom. They're the same type. Aggressive, charismatic, always closing. But Blake wasn't meeting Tom today. Is he here yet? I asked. Julie checked her phone. Checked in downstairs 5 minutes ago. Reception is bringing him up now. Perfect. Give me 2 minutes, then send him in. I walked into conference room B and sat down at the head of the table. The room was deliberately intimidating. Dark wood table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. We used it for client presentations and contract negotiations, the kind of room where people either rise to the occasion or crumble under pressure. I set the tablet on the table in front of me and waited. Exactly 2 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. "Come in," I said. The door opened. Blake walked in wearing a navy suit that was just a little too tight in the shoulders, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing his biggest smile. Then he saw me. The smile died. His face went through this incredible progression: confusion, recognition, panic, and then a forced attempt at recovery. It took maybe 3 seconds, but I watched every millisecond. "Mr. Brennan," he said. His voice cracked slightly. I didn't know you worked here." "Sit down, Blake." He sat, slowly, like he was worried the chair might explode. I let the silence stretch. It's an old negotiation tactic. Whoever speaks first loses. But Blake couldn't handle it. After maybe 10 seconds, he started babbling. This is such a coincidence. Emily didn't mention you worked at Zenith. I mean, she said you were in contracting, but I didn't realize... I should have asked more questions. This is really great, actually. I'm so excited about this opportunity. And knowing that you're here, it makes it even better. Family and business, right? That's the dream. I didn't say anything, just looked at him. He kept going. And I want to say, last night, that toast, I hope it didn't come across wrong. I really do respect what you do. The hands-on work, the simple approach, it's admirable. I meant that. I was just trying to, acknowledge different paths to success. "Blake," I said quietly. He stopped talking. "Do you know what I do here?" "You're in contracting?" His voice made it a question. "I'm the CEO. I own this company." The color drained from his face. Literally. I watched it happen. He went from nervous pink to chalk white in about 2 seconds. I founded Zenith 23 years ago," I continued. "Built it from the ground up. We do $50 million in annual revenue. We employ 120 people, and we're very, very particular about who we hire." Blake's mouth opened and closed like a fish. No sound came out. I picked up the tablet. "Let's talk about your application." Yes, of course." "You list your current title as Senior Account Manager at Patterson Pharma Supply." "Yes." "That's interesting, because when we called Patterson this morning, they said your actual title is Account Coordinator." Blake's eyes went wide. There must be a miscommunication. I handle senior-level responsibilities, so I use the title that reflects, "You lied on your resume." "I wouldn't say lied. I would say you claimed you increased territory sales by 40%. "I did. Over the course of... The actual number is 15%, and that was during a year when the entire industry grew by 12%. You essentially performed at market average." Blake was sweating now. Actual beads of sweat on his forehead. I kept going. "You listed yourself as leading a cross-functional team, but according to the project records we found, you were a junior member of a 6-person team that existed for 3 months. I had leadership responsibilities within that team. You were written up twice last year for missing quota." Silence. Blake's hands were shaking. He gripped the edge of the table to steady them. "Mr. Brennan," he started. His voice was different now, smaller, desperate. "I can explain all of this. The resume, it's just... Everyone embellishes a little. It's industry standard. And the write-ups, those were just..." "Do you know why I wanted to conduct this interview personally?" I interrupted. He shook his head. "Because last night, you stood in front of 40 people and called me simple. You mocked my life, my choices, my work. You laughed at me. And my daughter, your fiancée, she laughed too. I didn't mean... And then, after humiliating me in public, you came out to the bar and bragged to your friend about how you were going to crush this interview, how you were going to get into Zenith and be set." Blake's face was now a fascinating shade of gray-green, like he might throw up. "You wanted an interview with the CEO of Zenith Logistics," I said. "Congratulations, you got one." I stood up. Blake flinched. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to leave this building, you're going to go home, and you're going to think very carefully about the choices you've made. Mr. Brennan, please..." I'm not finished. My voice was calm, cold. the way it gets when I'm truly angry. You lied on your resume, which means even if I wanted to hire you, which I don't, I legally can't. You've demonstrated poor judgment, weak ethics, and a fundamental lack of respect for the people around you. I respect you. You called me simple. I didn't mean it that way. Yes, you did. The room went quiet. Blake was gripping the table so hard his knuckles were white. Is there anything else? He asked. His voice was barely a whisper. One more thing. I pulled a folder from my briefcase and slid it across the table. This is a list of every company in our partner network. About 60 businesses across New England. I'm sending them all a note this afternoon explaining that Blake Donnelly is not a candidate we can recommend for employment. His eyes went wide. You can't. I absolutely can. It's called a professional reference. Perfectly legal. But that would ruin my career. Then you should have thought about that before you insulted me in front of my family. Blake stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. For a second, I thought he might try something physical. His face was red now, the fear replaced by rage. You're doing this because of the toast? Because I made one joke? I'm doing this because you're a liar. The toast just made it personal. Emily's going to hear about this. I'm counting on it. She's going to be furious. Probably. You're ruining my life over nothing. No, I said calmly. I'm ruining your life because you tried to build it on lies. I'm just the one who caught you. Blake grabbed his portfolio and headed for the door. He yanked it open, then turned back to face me. You know what? You are simple. Emily was right. You're just some bitter old man who can't handle that the world moved on without you. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Get out of my building, Blake. He left. The door slammed behind him. I sat back down and took a slow breath. My hands were steady. My heart rate was normal. I felt good, clear, like I'd just finished a hard workout and the endorphins were kicking in. Julie knocked and entered a moment later. How'd it go? She asked. About as well as expected. He looked like he was going to cry when he got on the elevator. Good. Julie hesitated. You know he's going to tell Emily. I hope he does. And Emily's going to call you. I'm ready. Julie nodded. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. For what it's worth, that guy was a jackass. Even if he wasn't marrying your daughter, I would have rejected his application. That's why you're my favorite, I said. She left. I spent the next hour writing the email to our partner network. I kept it professional but clear. Dear colleagues, I'm writing to inform you that Blake Donnelly is not a candidate Zenith Logistics can recommend for employment. During our evaluation process, we discovered significant discrepancies between his stated qualifications and his actual professional record. Please feel free to contact me directly if you need additional information. I sent it to 62 companies. Then I forwarded a copy to Laura with a single line. Phase 1 complete. Her response came back immediately. Proud of you. Dinner at 7. We should talk about Phase 2. I smiled and closed my laptop. My phone rang. Emily. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Hi, sweetheart. What the hell did you just do? Her voice was shaking with anger. I conducted a job interview. You humiliated Blake? No, Blake humiliated himself. I just asked him some questions about his resume. He said you ambushed him. He said you lied about who you were. I never lied about anything. You assumed I was a handyman. I just didn't correct you. You own Zenith Logistics? For 23 years. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, fast and angry. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask? That's not fair. Isn't it? You've been dating Blake for 2 years. In that time, did you ever once ask me what I actually do for a living? Did you ever wonder how your mother and I paid for your college? How we can afford this house? I thought you were a contractor. Because that's what you wanted to think. Another pause. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder, colder. You did this on purpose. You wanted to embarrass him. I did this because he lied on his resume. If he'd been honest, we would have had a perfectly normal interview, but he wasn't honest, and that's not my fault. You're ruining his career. He ruined his own career the moment he decided to lie. I'm just the one who noticed. I can't believe you. You're sabotaging my wedding because you can't handle one stupid joke. It wasn't a joke, Emily. It was an insult. And you sat there and smiled. Because I didn't want to make a scene. Neither did I. But here we are. I could hear Blake in the background saying something I couldn't make out. We're done talking, Emily said. And you're not invited to the wedding. Neither of you. She hung up. I set the phone down and stared at it for a moment. Julie knocked again. Everything okay? Emily just uninvited us from the wedding. Ouch. Yeah. You want me to cancel the catering deposit? I looked at her. What catering deposit? The one you made last month. $8,000 for the reception. It's in your personal accounts. I'd forgotten about that. Laura and I had insisted on paying for the catering as our wedding gift. Emily had seemed grateful at the time. Leave it for now, I said. Let's see how this plays out. Julie left. I sat alone in the conference room, looking out at the city. My phone buzzed again, a text from Laura. She called me too, said we're both uninvited. I told her that's fine, we'll cancel our contribution to the wedding. She hung up on me. I texted back, Did you actually cancel anything? Not yet. Waiting for your call. Let's talk tonight. See you at 7. I spent the rest of the day working through emails and project reviews, trying to focus on normal business. But my mind kept wandering back to the look on Blake's face when he realized who I was. The panic, the fear, the rage. It felt good. Maybe that made me a bad person. Maybe a better father would have taken the high road, would have forgiven the insult, and moved on. But I'd spent 2 years watching Blake and Emily treat me like I was beneath them. 2 years of condescension and embarrassment. 2 years of being simple. I was done being simple. Stuart Morris's office was in a converted brownstone downtown, one of those historical buildings that got gutted and modernized while keeping the facade. Lots of exposed brick, lots of reclaimed wood, lots of trying too hard to look important. David Chen and I arrived at 9:55 a.m. The receptionist, young, professional, vaguely nervous when she saw us, immediately picked up the phone. Mr. Brennan and his attorney are here, she said quietly. Then, after a pause, Yes, I'll let them know. She hung up and gave us a tight smile. Mr. Morris will be with you shortly. Can I get you coffee or water? We're fine, David said. We sat in the waiting area. Modern furniture, expensive art prints, the kind of design that screams, we bill $300 an hour. David pulled out his phone and started checking emails. I just sat there, watching the door, waiting. 10 minutes passed. Classic lawyer move, make us wait, establish dominance, show that they're in control of the timeline. Finally, at 10:07, Stuart Morris appeared. Mid-40s, thinning hair, expensive suit that didn't quite fit right. He had that aggressive handshake thing going on, just like Blake. David, thank you for coming, he said, like I was doing him a favor. And you must be Mr. Chen. Stuart Morris, pleasure to meet you. David didn't return the smile. Let's get to it. Stuart led us to a conference room that was trying way too hard. Mahogany table, leather chairs, view of the historic district. Emily was already sitting there. She didn't look at me when we walked in, just stared straight ahead, hands folded on the table, jaw tight. Next to her was Blake. His face was still bruised from... Wait, what? What happened to your face? I asked before I could stop myself. Blake's jaw tightened. Emily spoke for the first time. He got jumped 2 nights ago. By who? We don't know. 3 guys in masks. They beat him up in the parking garage of our new apartment building. I looked at David. He looked back at me. We were both thinking the same thing. This was about to get blamed on me somehow. Stuart gestured to the chairs. Please sit. David and I sat across from Emily and Blake. Stuart remained standing, positioning himself at the head of the table like a judge. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Stuart began. I think we can all agree that this situation has escalated beyond what anyone intended. My clients are here today because they want to find a resolution that works for everyone. Your clients went to the media, David said flatly. After your client destroyed Blake's career and kicked them out of their apartment, Stuart shot back. After Blake lied on a job application and committed credit fraud, David countered. Stuart held up his hands. Gentlemen, please, we're not here to relitigate the past. We're here to find a path forward. I looked at Emily. She was still staring straight ahead, refusing to meet my eyes. Blake was watching me with barely concealed rage. What do you want? I asked. Stuart pulled out a folder. My clients are prepared to offer the following resolution. 1. David Brennan issues a public apology for his actions, specifically acknowledging that he overreacted and caused unnecessary harm to Blake's career prospects. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. No. 2. Stuart continued, ignoring me. David Brennan withdraws the negative reference email sent to partner companies and issues a correction stating that Blake Donnelly is a qualified candidate. Absolutely not, David Chen said. 3. David Brennan provides a written recommendation for Blake to 3 companies of Blake's choosing. You're joking, I said. 4. David Brennan compensates Blake for lost income and emotional distress. The amount is negotiable, but we're starting at $100,000. The room went quiet. I looked at Emily. You want me to pay Blake $100,000? She finally looked at me. Her eyes were cold. You ruined his life. You owe him. I ruined his life by catching him in a lie. You ruined his life because you couldn't handle a joke. It wasn't a joke, Emily. It was an insult, and you laughed. Because it was funny. You are simple. You're small and petty, and you can't stand that Blake and I don't need you. Blake put a hand on her arm. Em, let Stuart handle this. She shook him off. No, he needs to hear this. Dad, you've spent my entire life pretending to be something you're not, playing the humble contractor while secretly being rich, lying to everyone. And then when Blake makes one comment about your simple life, you lose your mind and try to destroy us. That's insane. I never lied to you, I said quietly. You lied about everything. I withheld information. That's different, and I did it because I wanted you to love me for who I am, not what I have. That's the most narcissistic thing I've ever heard, David Chen interrupted. Okay, this is going nowhere. Let me be clear about our position. 1, there will be no apology. My client conducted a legitimate job interview and discovered fraudulent information on the application. That's not overreacting, that's doing due diligence. 2, there will be no withdrawal of the reference email. Every statement in that email was factual and protected speech. 3, there will be no letter of recommendation. My client will not vouch for someone he cannot in good conscience recommend. And 4, there will be absolutely no payment to Blake Donnelly. If anything, Mr. Donnelly should be compensating my client for the credit fraud. Stuart's face hardened. Then we have no choice but to proceed with legal action. On what grounds? Defamation, tortious interference, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Take your pick. David smiled, a cold, professional smile. Good luck with that. Every single one of those claims requires proving that my client acted maliciously and without factual basis, which he didn't. So please, file your lawsuit. I'll enjoy destroying it in court. Blake stood up suddenly. This is bullshit. Sit down, Blake, Stuart said. No, this is bullshit. We came here in good faith trying to fix this, and he's just... I said sit down. Blake sat, but he was shaking with rage, fists clenched on the table. I looked at Emily. Is this really what you want? A lawsuit? Public court proceedings? Years of legal battles? What I want is for you to take responsibility for what you did. I did take responsibility. I responded honestly to a dishonest situation. You ruined everything. No, Emily, Blake ruined everything when he lied. You ruined everything when you defended him. I just refused to be complicit in it. Emily's eyes filled with tears. For a second, just 1 second, I saw the little girl I used to know, the daughter who trusted me, who loved me. Then it was gone. The cold mask came back. The coffee shop on Elm Street was one of those hipster places with Edison bulbs, reclaimed wood, and a menu board written in chalk. Not my usual scene, but neutral enough for what Blake wanted. David Chen and I arrived at 5:55 p.m. Blake was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee waiting. He stood up when he saw us, looking nervous. The bruise on his face had yellowed, about 4 days old. Someone had hit him hard. David, Mr. Chen, thanks for coming. We sat down. David immediately pulled out a small recording device and set it on the table. This conversation is being recorded, he said, for everyone's protection. Blake nodded. That's fine. I expected that. Why did you want to meet? I asked. Blake took a sip of his coffee, buying time. Because I think we can end this without Emily knowing. Without the lawsuit. Without more damage. I'm listening. Look, I screwed up. I know that. The resume stuff, the credit check, the way I acted at the engagement party, all of it. I was trying too hard to impress people, and I made bad choices. You lied on a job application and committed fraud. I know, and I'm sorry. I really am. David leaned forward. Blake, what exactly are you proposing? Blake looked down at his coffee. I want to make you an offer. I'll convince Emily to drop the lawsuit. I'll take full responsibility for everything that happened. I'll tell her it was all my fault, that you were right to do what you did. And in exchange for what? You withdraw the reference email. You don't help me get a job. I'm not asking for that. Just stop actively preventing me from getting one. Let me rebuild my career on my own terms. I looked at David. He was watching Blake with narrowed eyes. Why would you do this? I asked. Oh, Emily's furious at me. She wants me destroyed. Why would you go against her? Blake's face twisted with something like pain. Because she's making this worse than it needs to be. The lawsuit, the media stuff, the Facebook posts. It's becoming her whole life. She's obsessed with making you suffer. And I'm starting to realize that's not healthy, for her or for me. So this is about protecting Emily. This is about protecting both of us. Look, Mr. Brennan, I know you think I'm some gold-digging asshole who's just using your daughter, and maybe I was, a little bit, but I do love her, and I'm watching her turn into someone I don't recognize, someone bitter and angry and consumed by revenge. That's not the woman I fell in love with. You made her that way, I said. We both did, you and me, but we can unmake it. We can end this before it gets worse. David tapped his pen on the table. What about the attack? The one that left your face looking like that? Blake's jaw tightened. What about it? Emily implied I might be responsible. I know, she's wrong. You had nothing to do with it. How do you know? Because I know who did it. The coffee shop suddenly felt very quiet. Even the background music seemed to fade. Explain, David said. Blake took a deep breath. I borrowed money from the wrong people about 6 months ago before I met you, before any of this started. I had some gambling debts. I thought I could pay them off with my signing bonus from Zenith if I got the job. When that fell through, I didn't have a backup plan. How much? 40,000. I whistled low. Jesus, Blake. I know. The guys in the parking garage were collecting. They said next time it'll be worse. Have you told Emily? No, and I'm not going to. She thinks you arranged it to scare us. I let her think that because... He trailed off. Because it's easier than admitting you're in debt to loan sharks, David finished. Yeah. We sat there in silence. I was processing, trying to figure out if this was real or just another layer of manipulation. Why are you telling us this? I asked finally. Because I need your help. There it was. The real reason for this meeting. You want money, I said. No, not money. I want... Blake struggled to find the words. I want this to end. I want Emily to drop the lawsuit, move on, start healing. But she won't do that as long as she sees you as the enemy, so I need you to stop being the enemy. By withdrawing the reference email. Yes, and maybe by reaching out to Emily, apologizing. Not for what you did, I get that you won't do that. But for how it escalated, for the pain it caused, give her something she can hold on to that's not rage. I looked at David. He shrugged slightly. Your call. If I do this, I said slowly, what happens with your debt? I'll figure it out. It's my problem. $40,000 is a lot of problem. I'll sell my car. I'll move into a cheaper apartment. I'll get a second job. Whatever it takes. You could just declare bankruptcy. Blake shook his head. These aren't the kind of people you declare bankruptcy on. These are the kind of people who break your legs if you don't pay. Then why did you borrow from them? Because I was stupid and desperate and I thought I was smarter than I actually am. Blake's voice cracked slightly. Look, I'm not asking you to like me. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to help me end this nightmare before Emily destroys herself trying to destroy you. I sat back and looked at this kid, because that's what he was, really. Just a kid who'd made a series of increasingly bad decisions and was now drowning in the consequences. Part of me wanted to walk away, to let him figure out his own mess, to keep Emily at a distance and let the lawsuit run its course. But another part, the part that was still a father, that still remembered teaching Emily to ride a bike and helping her with homework and walking her to her first day of school. That part wanted to find a way back. I need to think about this, I said. How long? 24 hours. Blake nodded. Okay, but Mr. Brennan, don't take too long. My next payment is due in 3 days. If I don't have it, things are going to get a lot worse. And Emily's going to be right in the middle of it. Why? Because we share a bank account, and when they come looking for the money, they're going to find her too. David swore under his breath. You put her at risk. I didn't mean to. But you did. Blake didn't argue, just sat there looking miserable and young and scared. We stood up to leave. I grabbed my coffee, untouched, and turned back to Blake. One more thing, I said. If I agree to help you, Emily can never know. Not about the debt, not about this meeting, not about any of it. As far as she's concerned, I reached out on my own because I wanted to fix things. Why? Because if she finds out you asked for my help, it'll destroy her trust in you, and then all of this was for nothing. Blake nodded slowly. Okay, I can do that. And you drop the lawsuit. I'll convince her. No, you drop it. You tell Stuart Morris to file withdrawal papers. You make it happen. What if she won't agree? Then no deal. Figure out your debt problem on your own. Blake looked down at his coffee, then back up at me. Deal. David and I left. Outside, the evening air was cold and sharp. I could see my breath. What do you think? I asked. I think he's telling the truth about the debt, David said. The bruises are real. The fear is real. But I also think he's using it to manipulate you into backing down. So what do I do? That depends. Do you want to win, or do you want your daughter back? I didn't have an answer for that. We got in our cars and drove away. On the way home, I called Laura and told her everything. He's in debt to loan sharks? She said. Oh my God. $40,000. And Emily doesn't know? According to Blake, no. Laura was quiet for a long moment. David, this is bad. If those people come after Blake and Emily's with him, I know. We have to help. Do we? She's our daughter. She's our daughter who called me abusive and is suing me for $100,000. I don't care. If she's in danger, we protect her. I pulled into our driveway and sat there with the engine running. What if Blake is lying? What if this is all a setup to get us to back down? Then we call his bluff. But David, what if he's not lying? What if Emily really is at risk? Then we're in an impossible situation. I went inside. Laura was waiting in the living room, arms crossed, face set with determination. What are you thinking? She asked. I'm thinking we need to verify Blake's story before we make any decisions. How? I pulled out my phone and called David Chen. I need you to do something for me, I said when he answered. I need you to find out if Blake Donnelly really has gambling debts, who he owes, how much, and whether his story checks out. That's going to require a private investigator. Then hire one, best you can find. I need an answer by tomorrow morning. That's fast. Blake said his next payment is due in 3 days. If this is real, we need to know now. I'll make some calls. I hung up. Laura was watching me. If Blake's telling the truth, I said, then we have a decision to make. Do we help Emily even though she hates us, or do we let her face the consequences of choosing him? We help her. Even if it means backing down, withdrawing the email, essentially admitting we were wrong. We don't have to admit we were wrong. We just have to stop actively making it worse. I sat down next to her on the couch. This is exactly what Blake wants. He's manipulating us into protecting Emily. I know, but what's the alternative? Let her get hurt to prove a point? I didn't answer, because she was right, and I knew it, but that didn't make it any easier. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. I know you met with Blake tonight. Whatever he told you, whatever he's trying to do, don't fall for it. He's not your friend, he's not your ally, he's just trying to save himself. I showed the text to Laura. How does she know? Laura asked. Maybe she followed him. Maybe the coffee shop has security cameras. Maybe Blake told her. If Blake told her, then his whole story about keeping this secret was a lie. Probably. Another text came through. The lawsuit is happening. Nothing you do or say will stop it. I'm going to make you pay for everything you've done. That's a promise. Laura read over my shoulder. She sounds unhinged. She sounds hurt. Hurt people hurt people. I set the phone down and leaned back on the couch, exhausted. I don't know what to do anymore. Then we wait for the investigator's report. We get the facts, then we decide. And if the facts show Blake was lying, then we fight, hard. And if the facts show he was telling the truth, then we protect Emily, even if she doesn't want us to. We sat there in silence, holding hands, while the clock ticked and the house settled, and somewhere across town our daughter planned our destruction.